Everybody, welcome to week 72 of the Ag Commodity Corner Plus podcast. And today is the 21st of August, 2026. Guess who's back? Mo, how was your tour? And are you going to tell us about what you found in the fields?
It was good. 10 days on tour across Ontario, and I'll give you my top observations. Can't give you the final yields, or I'd have to kill everybody. But if you want to join us live, don't forget on August 27th, we're in Hickson, Ontario. So if you're an Ontario farmer watching, please join us. I'll buy lunch lunch is on me. So and maybe you can learn something. Anyways. So this week's title is the Pro Farmer Crop Tour 2026 U.S. corn yield at 173.2. Wow, still too high. We'll explain why we think it's too high. So let's start off with the weekly quote summary chart, and we had corn up 25 cents. That's September, and we'll talk about it here shortly, but December's breaking above its 3-year ceiling at 504.5. You guys need to know that technically. Beans up 48, back to 1225. I think canola was down slightly because of the Stats Canada or the AAFC update.
And also the fact that some of those waivers by the U.S. Is it's back in place.
What do you mean
for the SRE waivers?
Oh, I see. Okay,
and that's impacting soy oil and the veg oils complex.
Okay, Chicago was up, and by the way, corn, wheat, and soybeans new crop are about to break out to the top side, and I think corn did it. We didn't quite get it in wheat and soybeans. But after the close, Pro Farmer reported the 173.2, and I think on Monday you're going to see some price action to the upside, and the funds are going to add to their long positions. Hogs are still struggling, but the cutout was up $1 and change today. Cash is down to 93. But what I'm thinking is, if Xi's meeting with Trump in a month, what if China buys more pork as part of the U.S. $17 billion trade deal? Hog producers could get lucky here. So we're not really doing anything on hogs. We're wait and see, and maybe we get lucky. It's been a disappointing year overall for hog producers. Cattle continue to move lower, but we had a cattle and feed report. We'll talk about that as well. The Dow a little off this week. Bitcoin actually breaking to the upside. Never thought I'd say that, but I thought we were going to go the other way. Anyways, we'll talk about that as well. And, crude up 530 for the week. We're not talking about crude, so I'll talk about it now. Trump is looking to add more economic pressure through sanctions. And, that didn't work so well with Russia, so I don't know how he thinks that's going to work well here. He's dragging his feet. Rand's dragging his feet. He's trying to bring both China and the Middle East involved to put pressure on Iran. I don't think it's going to work, and that's why crude was up 530. So who knows how long this thing's going to last. U.S. dollar was down. Canadian dollar up. So let's get started with this Pro Farmer Crop Tour.
Well, it's been crop tour season all across North America, and we got the latest results from the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, which seems to be impacting the markets. So Pro Farmer came out with a U.S. corn yield for 2026 at 173.2. That compares to the USDA at 180.7. And for soybeans, they are at 53.3. Looks to be a record crop possibly if they get a good finish. And that compares to USDA at 52.7. Almost all the states showed deterioration for corn, except for maybe Minnesota.
I still think Minnesota is way too high, both for the USDA and Pro Farmer, because that southwest corner was too hot and too dry, like the Dakotas, like Nebraska, Texas, and Kansas. And then the soybeans also lower, disappointing. Minnesota higher. We'll see. So, guys, look, Here's my insight to you. I talked to two experts in the United States. You may know them. One is Dan Quinn from Purdue University. He's a corn specialist. And Ken Ferry. You're probably more familiar with Ken Ferry because he's part of the AgWeb family, pro farmer, that sort of thing. Anyways, Dan Quinn said a fifth of Indiana is smoked because of the severe weather, the windstorms, the rain, just too much excess. He also talked about the lack of solar radiation, 20 to 30% lower than last year, lack of sunshine, 20 to 30% below normal, 50% lower than last year. Too cloudy. And I'm going to think that some of that same lack of sunshine occurred in Illinois because they had tons of storms as well. Ken Ferry says, Mo, corn and soybean yields for 26 are down 25% compared to last year. Both. USDA is not there. Pro Farmer's not there. Pro Farmer's down about 15%. You can see here in Illinois down 7% for beans. And Illinois down 3.3. Oh, sorry. These are this is the beans. Yeah, that's the beans. And is this the corn? Yeah, this is the corn down 7.7. So, Ken's saying 25. Could he be off? Maybe. But he says he's never seen this much hail damage in his 45-year history doing this. So that's got to count for something, guys. You tell us, is 173.2 too high or too low? Give us your comments in the YouTube channel. Now, if we plug that 173.2 into the corn balance sheet and leave everything else unchanged, ending stocks drop to 983. That's a 6% stocks to use ratio. What do you think corn's going to do? You give me a number. I know what the number is, but you guys got to tell me. And then let's talk about this. This was the DTN Digital Tour estimates from last week.
So we did touch upon the DTN Tour last week, but then we got specifics regarding a lot of those states. DTN Tour as well showing significant reduction in yield estimates for those I states and Ohio.
North Dakota, 142 up 9? I don't think so. I talked to also somebody in South Dakota. You may know him as the high yield producer. He does really well in wheat, Lee Lubers. He's part of that Extreme Ag, whatever TV show. Anyways, he's one of our clients, and he says there's no way South Dakota's 151. I have to go back and check. Give me 1 second. But South Dakota, 151 for the U.S. Pro Farmer crop. No, 149, sorry. He says no way is 149. He's been talking to a lot of people in the state because he farms in the state, and it's a disaster. So I still think these are too high. You're going to see the USDA lower the yields again, most likely corn in September and again in October. So let's talk about the Ontario
Tell us about
tour.
The Ontario Tour.
Yeah. So overall, big yields coming. Unlike the United States, we didn't get the severe weather, although Ottawa Valley, which is Eastern Ontario, did get a record July in precipitation. I think it was 280 millimeters, the most in 150 years. In the last 10 days, they've gotten 8 inches of moisture. So August is also tracking on a record. But I arrived there this past Monday, and 4 out of 5 days, I brought heat and sunshine. So I think they're going to invite me back very soon because they needed the heat and sunshine. It was wet on, I think, Wednesday. So there is some disease pressure in the beans, white mold, SDS, aphids. I didn't see a lot. There were some Florida clusters at the top. So if they make it to the end, these farmers get to go to Florida. It's the bonus in the beans. And then we got corn. You can see up in this right-hand picture, you got some yellow corn in the same field with white corn. So mature versus immature. Why? Because we had a cold, wet spring. So if this was planted right around that, late April, early May 5th to the 12th, this was emergence. Some emerged quicker than others, and that's why you're seeing that difference. Okay, there are some hot regions within southwestern Ontario, like Forest, Thamesville, Perth, parts of Middle Essex that are too dry. So very dry through July, just like the Dakotas and the Northern Plains, Central U.S. But they got timely rains at the end of July and again early August. We're about to get some rains this weekend, so if they can keep getting these timely rains, I mean, it's not a record crop, but it's not a disaster either. You can see testing 150 in forest. But here's the key observation in corn: no leaf diseases. It is so clean, it's not funny. We got plenty of moisture in the soil. As long as we get heat and sunshine, I think it's going to be something big. So we released the final Eastern Ontario yields of corn and beans at our final East event in Moose Creek at Domar Farms. And it's a record corn at 200. You can see some of our past years, even bigger than 23, which was the first record. And then the beans are close to a record in 24. It was 58.97. We're estimating at 58.2. But we have lots of pods. And if we can finish strong with sun and sunshine, plenty of moisture, I think that could also be a record. So let's move on with weather.
Yep. So just to spend some time on the issues that the Midwest is facing. As of August the 19th, much of the Ohio Valley is trending toward its wettest August on record. And parts of the Midwest have already set new rainfall records. And that just adds to all the issues that the crops have been facing so far.
Yeah, the market does not think that these storms have done much damage, but when you talk to the locals, it's a totally different story. The USDA is going to take time to tell you that story, but I got some good news. So I don't know if you guys know Kip Tom. Kip Tom is a farmer in Indiana, about 15,000 acres. He was the U.S. Ag ambassador to the world. Secretary Rollins has picked him to fix the USDA now. So in September, he's going to make an announcement, some of the changes. He wants to go from an analog digital USDA to strictly digital. He says that a lot of companies that farmers deal with as suppliers already know what's going on because they have the technology. The technology is there, but the USDA is not using it. And so he wants to make it more transparent for the farmer. He wants things known before, not 6 or 8 months later. So he was on a podcast with Chip Floria and AgriTalk, and he was saying, how did the USDA find 3 million more acres of corn and beans harvested? And it's a new record. Why didn't we know that 6 months ago? So this is great news for you guys. He's thinking of actually putting together a USDA crop report. Please, no, I don't need the work. Twice a month. I don't want to do twice a month. I understand where he's going with it, but oh, Lord. Anyways, it is what it is. But we're going down the right road. And we also need to stop those subsidies, but that's another story for another day. What else you got, Abhinesh? Anything else?
So this is the latest from Crop Profit, just another depiction of the recent precipitation. All that green in the middle just adds to what you were talking about.
So, a lot of meteorologists were saying this is your high pressure ridge. That's why it's droughty in Texas. And you had those ridge riding storms above this high pressure ridge, and that's what was happening here. And it's a very narrow corridor, but it's in prime U.S. cropland. And you can also see it's a little bit dry here in the northern plains as well.
And, this is their corn yield projection versus, it just goes to show that all that wetness can impact yields and impact it adversely.
Yeah, actually, studies show that, the longer you remain saturated, flooded, you do more damage to yield, especially after 10 days.
More of the same, yeah, and, showing the various regional yield impacts of all that moisture and rain. And this more just going back to your discussion regarding that balance sheet. As of now, we are looking at USDA numbers. We are looking at over 10% in terms of U.S. corn stocks to use ratio, but we are likely to drop below that. And what sort of numbers are you looking at?
Oh, I think this gets very tight now. I mean, again, the USDA is going to have to tell you this pro farmer crop story. And by the way, pro farmer yield estimates are usually, they tend to underestimate the USDA. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think we'll know if there was damage in the October 12th crop report because USDA is going to visit their plots. But you could easily drop back to those 2012 lows. And in 2012, because demand is very strong. So we're going to have to ration demand, obviously, but with higher futures. But I can't remember in 2012 we got to like 1 point. No, sorry, we got down into that 600 million. If it wasn't, is that the right number or something like that?
It was sub $1 billion.
Yeah, so I
bushels,
don't.
yeah.
I think we could go sub a billion, but I don't know if we go that low. But a 6% stocks to use ratio is much higher corn prices.
What do you think that does to new crop corn prices?
Yeah, so this is the December corn futures chart. Look, this is weekly. You're breaking the 200-day moving average. The daily is breaking the 504.5 ceiling, 3-year ceiling. And if you take a Fibonacci retracement of the 22 highs, you get the 537, 565, 650. So you just asked me, where are we going? You pick a number. How quickly? I think we can go there very quickly, and I'll show you why in a second. Don't forget to try our program. They don't call me Mo Spot On for nothing. I'm just kidding. But we have been spot on a lot of things. And by the way, if corn's going to 530, 550, 650, pick the number, and we can't end the war to Iran and open that Strait of Hormuz, what do you think is going to happen to fertilizer? Maybe we need to manage some of that risk. Tell me, guys, whether you're going to do any of that fertilizer. Sorry, Abhinesh.
No, I was just saying, let's look at the demand side as well, and some good news there. The U.S. soybean tracker, as of now, Mo, as per that 25 million metric ton target, we are at 38% if we include unknown as well. That thing seems to be chugging along.
I'm not surprised. We've been talking about this forever. You, as farmers, have no patience. Grow some patience. Forget the daily movements, monthly. It's all noise. This is accelerating. 1.4 million today alone, highest since November of 25. Why? We're 1 month away from Z visiting Trump. This is goodwill gestures. I'm not surprised. I hope you're not. There's too many people that still do not believe in this trade deal. We've explained it to you before. I'm not going to get into it, but this is really good news.
Not just soybeans. If we take the trade expected goal of 10 million metric ton to be true, the sales so far have been to unknown mostly, but as we know, unknown has to be China.
But in the next 30 days, you're going to see a USDA flash sale of 1 million metric tons of U.S. corn to China. Now you got a lower yield, you got strong demand, you got Chinese demand. I don't know, guys. I think the funds are going to create some fireworks.
Let's talk about that U.S.-Canada trade deal situation. The deadline's coming up on Saturday regarding Trump increasing the tariffs on Canadian goods. So U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum would drop from 50 to 25% and more U.S. imports of dairy into Canada if a deal is struck.
Well, the first deadline was on Wednesday at midnight. Then he delayed it 3 days. Wow. Look, I'm not going to try to get political with everybody, but dropping steel from 50 to 25% is not enough. I think Carney wanted 10 or 50. And then autos is another stickler. Trump wants to increase the percentage of U.S. parts in U.S. manufactured cars. I forget the percentage, but I think it goes from the high 70s to 80%. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see whether Carney makes a deal. But the Canadian dollar has fallen a little bit because the U.S. dollar's fallen. But the Canadian dollar has risen while the U.S. dollar's fallen. Maybe a little bit of a relief rally, dead cap bounce. Maybe we're close to a trade deal. So we'll have to wait and see.
Well, let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin seems to be making a comeback the last 3 days. In fact, if you take the weekly gain, it's up by about 20%. Some of it related to the intervention by Besant in the bond market to cool some of those treasury yields which were on a runaway.
So, good news. You're breaking the 200-day moving average, just like in corn, as it's technically breaking out to the upside. So is Bitcoin above 77,872 on a weekly chart. It's also broken above the 200 at 64,704. So who knows? Maybe we're heading back to 100,000, which would be great news for investors.
Today we had the latest USDA cattle on feed report release, and that seems to be neutral to friendly as far as futures are concerned. And that placements figure, which is 89% of the prior year's estimates, that would be the lowest in 30 years.
So the market should bounce on Monday. Futures have struggled because packers in the U.S. keep cutting plants or shutting down plants. Well, why would a farmer want to expand his herd if he's losing shackle space? And then, of course, there's some late news this evening that Trump is going to import more ground beef. I think it's 300,000.
Yeah.
It's so small, it's not funny. Again, noise. I could care less. This is short-term noise, and I think eventually we'll come out of it, because the packers have gained advantage over the farmer because they were losing $300 a head, now gaining 200. And so, for a small, short period of time, maybe they needed to make some money, but I still think it won't last.
And finally, the latest CFTC update also released today, and we alluded to this last week. Look out for all that buying, we said, and that is showing up in the grains, in corn, massive 83,735 net bought during the week, taking that net length to over 250,000 contracts. Soybeans, over 50,000 contracts bought, taking net length to upwards of 150,000. And in canola as well, despite today's weakness, we wouldn't see that until next week's report. But canola up by over 36,000 contracts, taking that net length upwards of 91,000.
If you remember in May, we were forecasting record long positions in ag from the funds. We hit it, and we were forecasting 1.5 million at the top. We were early in our projection, and guess what? Now you're headed there. You're now long 773,000 or so. We think after this week's performance higher, you're up to 920. And if you look at this chart, when we hit the high in May, it was about 1 million, just over 1 million. I think we're going to break it as we get into next week, into the month of September, October, as the USDA shows us that the yields in the U.S. are lower. Don't forget, if you're an Ontario farmer, join us on the 27th of August live. Lunch is on me. Prizes for attending. You're going to learn something from all the guest speakers and experts. It's a great showing and another successful year. I've got 11 tours under my belt now, and we're going to move on to number 12. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend and enjoy the end of your summer.
Bye, guys.
Bye.